With Caitlin Clark injured, the WNBA will be reliant on their other stars to carry the league. I'm not just talking about ratings. I'm not just talking about attendance. The WNBA will be reliant on their other stars to maintain the interest of the mainstream. With Angel Reese being the only player with mainstream name recognition, most of the pressure, it is going to be on her to perform. And we have plenty of evidence that proves Angel Reese is not qualified to carry the league.
Caitlin Clark's season has officially come to a heartbreaking end, and the story is bigger than just bad luck or injuries. All year long, she's absorbed an incredible amount of physical play, and instead of being shielded as one of the league's brightest stars, she often became the target of excessive contact that wore her down. From a quad strain and made a groin issues in June and July to a bone bruise in August. It was one setback after another. The result? A rookie campaign that was supposed to propel Indiana into the spotlight ended prematurely. Not with a playoff debut, but with another entry on the injury list. And the frustration isn't just about Clark's absence. It's about what it represents for the WNBA. Fans have watched her shoved on screens, bodied before even touching the ball, and hammered on curls, only to see whistles stay silent. Too often, what should have been a showcase of skill turned into a grind of survival. That's why this moment stings so much. The league had a chance to protect one of its most marketable, impactful players, and it didn't. Now, the fallout isn't only a personal blow for Clark. It's a setback for the league itself, one that leaves fans demanding accountability and a better path forward.
Action. Angel Reese, Under Pressure. When you think about it, there have been so many classic songs written about the WNBA dump. Obviously, Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie, which directly applies to what Angel Reese and her colleagues are going through right now. An immense amount of pressure to carry this dump of a league while Caitlin Clark recovers from
And here's the painful irony. The very player who carried the WNBA into record-breaking viewership, selling out arenas in Dallas, Las Vegas, New York, and Chicago, was also the one left most vulnerable. Caitlin Clark brought in millions of TV dollars in ticket sales months in advance. Yet instead of letting her showcase her game, too often the focus turned into an arms race of fouls, cheap shots, and intimidation. For Clark, that meant absorbing collisions, awkward landings, and twisted pivots that stacked up into injuries. None of it felt accidental. It was the byproduct of unchecked physical play. Her quad strain, her lingering groin issues, the final bone bruise, these weren't flukes. They were the cumulative result of weeks where opponents leaned on physicality instead of skill, and where whistles rarely provided protection. That's what makes this moment so concerning. It wasn't just frustrating to watch, it was dangerous to the very foundation of the league. Every unnecessary hit chipped away at the WNBA showcase season, until finally, it took away its biggest draw.
Well, it all started last year, in her rookie season, where she received 20% of all the flagrant fouls in the league. And most of them came from Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky. And these weren't basketball plays. They were not only fouling her, but they were getting up, laughing about it, laughing about Caitlin Clark getting assaulted. Any other work environment, people go to jail for what's going on.
And that's why so many fans are calling out the hypocrisy. The WNBA proudly paraded headlines about record ticket sales, sold-out jerseys, and unprecedented sponsorships, all built on the buzz Caitlin Clark generated. But when it came to protecting their biggest star, they let rivalry-fueled physicality turn the season into a circus. The result? The very player they built their marketing around is sidelined for the rest of the year. Arenas that were overflowing are suddenly half empty. TV networks that cleared prime slots for Clark are scrambling to adjust. It's the inevitable fallout of a league that cashed in on her star power without shielding her from the pounding that slowly broke her down. The targeting, the jealousy, the constant cheap shots, they didn't just change box scores. They laid the groundwork for Clark's collapse. And the backlash isn't just staying on the floor, it's spilling into every corner of the league. Was her second season doomed from the start? Looking back, it feels like it. Even in training camp, reports hinted at tightness in her quad, something most franchises would have treated with caution. Instead, she was pushed front and center in every scrimmage, every promo, every media appearance. There was no chance to rest, no chance to recover. By June, that nagging issue had turned into a groin injury. By July, the groin gave way to a full tear. And then came the announcement no one wanted. Caitlin Clark was done for the year. This wasn't about one unlucky twist of fate. It was about a season-long pattern that never gave her body or her reputation a fair chance.
I mean, it's a gut punch that basically encompasses an entire season of them. The Fever have lost so many players to injury, but obviously none bigger than Clark. And there was such a wait for this second season after her magnificent rookie season. And then, the anticipation of her possibly coming back, only for that not to happen, takes a lot of air out of the room, obviously takes a lot of energy out of the fans, and is a devastating blow for not just the Fever and the WNBA.
The most frustrating part? Clark never really had a stretch where she was fully healthy. At least 3 different times, she landed on the injury report as day-to-day, and every time the word precautionary was tossed around like a safety net. But in reality, precautionary meant rushing through treatment, taping things up, and getting thrown right back in the fire that same weekend. To fans, it looked like watching someone trying to sprint on one leg while the league, officials, and opponents stood by as if everything was perfectly fine.
Clark, a 2-time All-Star and the 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year, has been sidelined suffering a right groin injury during the Fever's 87-77 win over the Connecticut Sun on July 15th. If you guys remember that game, Caitlin Clark put the team on her back in the waning minutes to give the Indiana Fever that lead. Clark also suffered a bone bruise at a later date during her recovery process.
That's where mismanagement and physical play collided. Anyone who follows sports knows untreated injuries don't just linger, they stack up. And Clark wasn't only battling back-to-backs and cross-country travel. She was doing it under a spotlight of relentless contact from opponents who seemed intent on testing her limits. Coaches could see it. Her first step lost some of its burst, her drives lacked their usual lift, her cuts came up short. Yet she continued to log heavy minutes. The medical staff's job should have been to step in and protect her, even if she insisted on playing. Instead, she was left exposed, taking hit after hit while opponents treated every hard foul or bump like a badge of honor. Caitlin Clark's health, or the revenue tied to her name? The answer feels painfully obvious. The Fever needed her to pack arenas. The WNBA needed her to keep TV ratings afloat. And no one pumped the brakes when the warning signs flashed. Nobody asked if dragging her out night after night was sustainable. The result? Clark didn't fall to a freak accident. She unraveled after 13 games in a season-long spiral of overuse, relentless contact, and unchecked physical play. When the announcement finally came, the words were her own. I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season. I spent hours in the gym every day with the singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I'm feeling. I want to thank everyone who had my back through all the uncertainty. This has been incredibly frustrating, but even in the bad, there is good. The way fans continue to show up for me, and the Fever brought me so much joy and important perspective. I'm so proud of how this team has only gotten stronger through the adversity this year. Now it's time to close out the season and claim our spot in the playoffs. That spiral didn't just cut short her sophomore campaign. It ripped momentum out of the league's hands. She was the ticket sales. She was the ratings. She was the merchandise. Every extra bump she absorbed, every foul that went uncalled, every night she was treated like a target instead of a peer, chipped away at her body and the league's credibility. By failing to protect Clark, the WNBA didn't just risk one season. They jeopardized the growth spurt women's basketball has been begging for.
My inside sources are telling me that Mama Reese demands free tickets. The Chicago Bravado, they happily oblige because they're also giving away free tickets to the other dozen or so people that show up to the arena.
Caitlin Clark's season didn't just collapse because of injuries. It collapsed because the league refused to protect her. And in doing so, they broke the trust of the very fans keeping them alive. That's the real damage here. Fans don't want hollow statements. They want accountability, better officiating, and a commissioner willing to stand up for players. Without that, boycotts will gut the playoffs before they even begin. Still, the Fever aren't done. Kelsey Mitchell is competing every night. Aaliyah Boston's leadership is growing. Lexi Hull keeps grinding. And don't forget, Clark will come back stronger in 2026. Let us know down in the comments below if you think the WNBA is to blame for this mess. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.